You and Chris are going to be in here talking about God knows what.
Oh, good grief, people. Oh, I say it almost every episode, and I mean it. There's a reason we don't videotape this. So why were you kicked off YouTube, Mr. Renbro? Well,
my buddy Chris.
Folks, this is the Retro Show. My name is Butch Renfro, and I am joined at the podcast table, as always, by my friend, my partner in crime, ladies and gentlemen,
Christopher Brown Curtis. She's back. She's back. How's it going? Yeah, 30 years. I'm sorry. I've been married 30 years. I can't. Thank you.
30 years.
Thank you. My wife's a killer.
No, seriously, she'll kill you.
She will.
She will. She ain't playing. Ladies and gentlemen, the Retro Show. This is the podcast that is an homage. I love saying that. To all things growing up in the 70s and 80s. Chris and I were both born in the 60s and grew up as kids in the 70s and kind of came of age during the 80s. So that's kind of our life experience, and we kind of celebrate all of that here on the Retro Show. And if you're about that, well then we welcome you to join us. You can find out all about us at retroshow.net. That has links to all of our podcast locations and also to all of our Facebook, social media kind of stuff. So there you go. Also a store there. I have not mentioned that lately.
You have not. We do have a store. And I'm going to tell you something. Butch gave me a Retro Show mug tonight. He said,
Yep.
I bought this for you. And it's pretty cool. It says the Retro Show on one side. And it says retroshow.net. And then on the other side, it says, I may be old, but I got to see all the cool bands.
That's right. You, too, can overpay on shipping and go get that from our store.
Man, shipping's ridiculous.
It is stupid high, but, you know, it is what it is. Ladies and gentlemen, also at retroshow.net, Chris, I shared this with you. We haven't talked about this, and we even recorded an episode previous to this. We have what's called radio.retroshow.net.
Right.
Okay, that is a web address, radio.retroshow.net, and it's basically all of the Retro Show radio, all of the Retro Show podcasts just kind of playing over and over again in a loop in a streaming radio station. And if you want to consume the show that way, fantastic, man. We invite you to do it. But that's one of those things that we just kind of have a placeholder right now. We're playing episodes where there may be other things that show up in there later on at radio.retroshow.net. Also a phone number if you want to get... Chris, do you remember the phone number?
501-697-9933. Dude, come on. Have some faith.
Have some faith. Well, I'm glad you did because for a moment I blanked. And so if you want to, folks, you can leave us a text message or a voicemail at that number at
501-697-9933.
There you go.
And make sure you find that button on there because it's 9933.
Yes. If you can't find it, it'll probably work without it.
Yeah,
but you don't want to take any chances. So, folks, here it is. It is that time of year. It is spooky season of October as we're recording this, and the weather has finally gotten to what I like to call decent.
Is that light flickering?
Let me see. I don't think so. Might be you. You might want to go get your eyes checked.
No, I'm going to have this instead.
That could possibly help.
Well, if not, it'll damn sure calm me down.
Yeah, so there you go. But folks, retroshow.net to find out all things about the podcast. If you want to listen to any, since we are as we're recording this, it is early mid October.
It's over half.
Yeah, it is now, isn't it?
Yep.
So we're about halfway through the month. Back in July, I would invite you all to go back and listen to. We actually had a sit down with Butch Patrick, who played Eddie Munster, on the show The Munsters, and that's a very fun podcast. We invite you to go back and listen to that and all of our previous episodes.
That cat had some wild stories, man.
He had some wild stories. He was on a couple of episodes with us, and I still greatly appreciate him taking the time to do that, and our friend Keller Johnson for arranging all of that. And so the topic of today's show, folks, is that Chris and I, and like a lot of you, our exposure to good science fiction basically came after we would come home from school. We would watch reruns of Star Trek.
Yep.
Yeah.
Never missed one either.
Never missed it either. And so we were huge fans of the Star Trek franchise, and we watched the entire series over. There were 3 seasons of the original series.
77 episodes, I think.
Yeah. That ran between 1966 and 1969. And so, yes, they started to syndicate those when we were kids. And so that was something that was aired.
It could be after the news.
Yes,
at night.
it could be after the news at night.
Too,
yes,
so.
But usually it was in the afternoons, usually about 5 o'clock. And then that would, lead into the news at 6. They would play between like 5 and 6 would be a Star Trek episode. And so that was our exposure to Star Trek back in the day. And for kids, man, that just fed right into us. I mean, we were just sucked right into that. And, of course, it wasn't just us. Apparently, it was a huge,
Oh, yeah, dude. I love Star Trek, but I don't consider myself a Trekkie. I've seen Trekkies, and I ain't one.
No. As a matter of fact, it reminds me, William Shatner was hosting Saturday Night Live back in the 80s.
Right.
And he was supposed to be like speaking at a Star Trek convention, and John Lovitz was in the audience with a pair of Spock, bad rubber Spock ears on. He's like, "You people need to get alive." He like looked at him. Have you ever even kissed a girl? And he's like, "No." He's like. But yeah, it was a thing. I mean, it was just a cultural thing. It's still a thing today.
It is.
One of the highlights, my sons, being able to take them, I guess about 7-8 years ago, and actually talk to, have their picture made with William Shatner was, and I wasn't even in the photograph. It was just cool for me to see my boys,
right?
Being able to experience that, and because they're big Trek fans as well.
I want y'all to understand, I'm not coming down on people that are Trekkies. I mean, if that's your bag, have fun, man. I love Star Trek too, but I'm just not going to be that one dressing up and
no.
That's just not me.
No, it's not me. I'm not buying a uniform. For any franchise.
Bad rubber Spock ears. I'm not doing
or
that.
Bad rubber Spock ears.
I'm going to buy the good ones.
But that was our introduction, basically, to sci-fi. I think for me was Star Trek.
We had Space 1999 too.
That came out about the same time, and they sold a bunch of that merchandise then too. As a matter of fact,
Eagle 1 and Eagle 2.
I had a big Eagle 1.
Yep.
Back in the mid 70s that I got for Christmas. But yeah, Space 1999 was so far in the future.
Yeah, 20 years at least, 25 years in the future.
And we'd be ancient by then.
We're not going to be here.
Yeah. But yeah, we had Space 1999, and then also during the 70s, they had the Star Trek animated series.
Yes, we've talked about that. We talked about that a lot.
Yeah. But I think the main thing that we're going to get into, because a little bit later on, we're going to take a break right now, come back, take a little break, thank our sponsors and all of that, and then come back, and we're going to actually talk about Star Trek versus Star Wars, and kind of where we come down on that. And you are listening to The Retro Show. Hey, Chris, guess what?
What?
Hey, guess what? We got producers on this show, and it's time to give them the big shout out. So
you
go ahead.
guys are awesome. I'm just saying.
Yep. So get us kicked off here. Who's first on the list?
LNC Corporation.
You don't cross the LNC Corporation. Never, ever. Next on the list, Kevin Goff. Thank you, Mr. Goff.
Goff, thanks, man.
And then, of course, Norton. Chris B.
Chris
from
B.
Out east. Thank you, Chris. Also, Nancy Schwartz.
Nancy Schwartz.
Thank you very much, Nancy. Joshua Ramsey. Big Joshua Ramsey.
Big J.
Man, it's a great... that would be a good wrestling name.
Well, not only that, man, it'd be a good cowboy name.
Yeah. Josh Ramsey. That's right. You don't cross Josh Ramsey either. All right, who's next on the list?
Fran Adams.
EM, just the initials, man. That's all we get on that. EM.
But thank you.
And then, of course,
Bradford, the Behemoth Mason.
Bradford Brad. And then our very first producer ever,
Number one in our hearts,
Tanya Highland.
Thank you, Tanya.
And if you would like to also be a producer for just $3 a month, it's very easy to do. Go to retroshow.net and you can find more information about how you can support our podcast. Hey guys, we're back on the Retro Show, and
that seems so short.
I know, it just flies by, doesn't it? And so the topic of today's show is Star Trek versus Star Wars.
Yep.
And the thing is I'm kind of like the little girl on the taco commercial. Why not both?
It's me. I mean, truthfully.
But there are differences.
Here's my take on the Star Wars and Star Trek deal. That came out. Star Trek I was watching at an early age.
Yeah.
With my dad. My dad would watch Star Trek. He kind of liked Star Trek. But it wasn't something he felt like he had to watch, but he would watch it. But in 1977, I'm 10 years old.
Yes.
And Star Wars hits the theater. And folks, that's still considered the most groundbreaking special effects movie that's ever been made.
For the time, and people, I don't think especially today, when you have all of these big budget movies coming out, that was not the norm. This was the start of the huge well, maybe Jaws was the first big blockbuster, but this was the one that when we were kids that really hit all of the buttons for us, because one, they had all the toys for it.
It did, and it was crazy.
It was crazy. Everybody wanted to get a Luke. Everybody wanted to get an R2. It was hard to get those, or a Darth Vader. Yep. And so, when Star Wars hit, up until that point, Star Trek was like, for a sci-fi fans was it. And then when this hit, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever.
Well, I mean, another thing is, to me, it's apples and oranges.
It really is.
Because, just the opening line of Star Wars, a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
Right. It
opened the door for the imagination that there is other life out in the universe. Mm-hmm. And it was different. It was just different than ours. Star Trek is based off of Earth.
Yeah.
In the future.
That's true.
And it was, to me, it's not a versus for me. It's a co-companion.
It is
for me.
And, but these fandoms, man, they get crazy over it. But here's my thing on that. Star Trek to me is more pure science fiction.
It is.
Okay,
I agree.
Star Wars is a fantasy with a sci-fi setting.
It's a space opera.
Because you got wizards, Jedi are wizards. There's a lot of Western elements in it.
Gunslinging.
The gunslinging, the whole thing. Even some of the series that are being developed and aired now on Star Wars, like The Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett, are Westerns. As a matter of fact, the Mandalorian is unapologetically made as a Western. It is paced like a Western. If you watch it, it is paced like a Western. The music sounds like something from Good and the Bad and the Ugly.
Yeah. It's good, though. I enjoy it. I really do enjoy it.
So to me, Star Wars has always been like a space Western, where Star Trek was more of a pure science fiction kind of show.
Well, when you say science fiction, man, I'm thinking science-based, and it was more science-based with Star Trek. Basically, they're their mission was to explore strange new worlds, to go in the universe and find new civilizations and to move on. Star Wars, they already know the entire galaxy, I guess.
Yeah, it's already been explored.
It's already been explored, and they're going from planet to planet, and when you delve in, we waited in our age, for you younger folks, we waited 20 years for the prequels.
Yeah,
for 1, 2, and 3, and that's where you get the Imperial Senate and all of that.
Yeah. That you always heard about.
Yeah, but you
never
didn't
really saw.
Right. The Jedi Council, all of that. Really cool, man. I mean, it was just totally different.
I'm going to tell you, a lot of people really had some hate for the prequels. I sat and watched them again, and I was going, you know what? A lot of that's undeserved.
It is. The only thing in that whole series that irks me still to this day is Jar Jar Binks. I cannot stand
that's
Jar Jar
the only
Binks.
one, and really, that's the only. If you
get right down to it, Jar Jar Binks started the Clone Wars.
He did. He absolutely started it. And the big thing about, and of course, you can't talk about Star Trek without, in '79, we were all excited because there was a new Star Trek movie coming out. We'd already had Star Wars,
right?
Well, great, because these characters that we loved, I mean, Kirk, Spock, Bones, Uhura, we loved these characters.
Don't forget about Scotty.
And don't forget about Scotty. Imagine Scotty alone with some girl. I can't do it now. I got no power. I'm sorry. But
dude, I'm gonna tell you
Scotty.
something. We were kids, man. We came up with all kinds of stuff for Star Trek.
Yeah.
It cannot be put on air.
No, it cannot.
So much fun, though.
It was so much fun. But you had that first movie that came out, and it almost killed the franchise before it even started. Because I'm gonna be honest, that first movie to me, I still can't watch it to this. It's almost unwatchable.
I don't think I've ever rewatched that.
It's not
now,
good.
The second one?
Now the second one might be my favorite.
The third one's my favorite when they come back in time. That was pretty cool.
Oh, that's fourth one. The fourth one. Because
what's the third
one is when Spock comes back to life,
the Genesis,
and they have to go.
The Genesis
yeah,
project.
they have to go.
That's right.
Rescue. But yeah, that fourth one's really good too. When they go back to 1986, any Trek with time travel was awesome, and it put them. And that was a really good one. But out of those first six, and it's the first six Star Trek movies are before they get into the next generation.
Yeah, that's the original cast,
folks. It's the original Star Trek, and my least favorite's the first one because it was just boring, man. It really was.
V'ger.
And it was like, man, really, that's the best you could get.
Come on.
You have Klingons and Romulans and Gorn and everything else, and what you're going to do is V'ger.
Yeah, I tell you, I was really impressed with the reboot. I really was. That one that they did, they did a fantastic job of casting the original crew.
Which reboot is that?
With Chris Pine.
With Chris Pine, the one they did in 2009.
Yes, it was incredible.
Yeah.
It really was. I
really enjoyed that one.
And Chris Pine did a great job of covering Kirk.
Okay. Have you seen on Paramount Strange New Worlds yet?
I haven't seen Strange. What's the other one? I watched the first season. It was good.
It was good too, but Strange New Worlds is Christopher Pike. And it takes place 10 years before Kirk. So there's a Spock on there and an Uhura on this. It is, dude, I'm just telling you right now, it is the closest in spirit to the original series of anything that I've ever seen out there. It's
really?
Strange New Worlds.
Okay, I'll check it out.
It is highly worth your time. I know you.
Yeah,
you will love this show. You will love this show.
What was the other show? What's the other one that's on
what
there?
is the one?
They had Picard. I watched the first season or two seasons of that. And then,
I've seen a few of those. But there was one. What was the name of that one?
That's crazy. I'm going to look it up. I'll look it up. You keep talking.
Yeah, but the whole. But to me, it's kind of like what we were saying. Star Trek versus Star Wars. I can't pick a favorite.
I can't either.
And I know a lot of people pick sides, and I'm like it's like I said, I'm like the little girl on the taco commercial. Why not both? And
it's a true story.
It's a true story. And it's like these people who get really deep into this, man, they like pick sides on that, and I'm like going, shh, let people like things, And
right. I mean, it doesn't really
know.
matter. Like I said, it's apples and oranges to me. It's two different things.
Yeah, it absolutely is.
And I
two
like them
different things.
both. Now, I lean more towards Star Wars than I do Star Trek, just because of the dead-gum lightsabers, man. At 10 years old, I wanted a lightsaber so bad.
I had, when I was in 5th grade, was it 5th or no? It had to be 6th grade.
Yeah, it was 5th grade for me.
I got a toy lightsaber one year that.
Yep, I have one.
And it was like the most cool toy that I ever had, except for the phaser that I got, the Star Trek phaser I got in 5th grade.
What?
Yeah, they had these little toy phasers that they were flashlights, but they made the noise.
Yeah, and that's the Discovery.
Oh yeah, Star Trek Discovery. I watched the first season of that, and it looked pretty good.
It was good.
But I'm going to tell you right now, as far as Star Trek versus Star Wars goes, I can't pick a favorite, because to me they're two different things.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, it's apples and oranges, man.
Yeah,
it is.
It really is apples and oranges, because, And
the people that argue about it don't know. I mean, I don't think they're not really fans. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, they're not fans. They're arguing about
two different things.
Two things.
Entirely. They just happen to both take place in
or
space.
They're closed-minded and they really like this one, and they're not, for any reason, going to like that one.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
That absolutely makes sense. And my son Brad is nodding in agreement back there on that. But I'm telling you that I think that a lot of people say, well, Disney ruined Star Wars. No, they didn't.
Well,
no, they didn't.
They've done some things that I don't agree with. I don't. And I'm not going to bring that up.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk about it. That's my personal belief.
Right.
So, but I've watched the Ahsoka
I have not watched that yet. Do you like it?
Oh man, yeah.
Do I need to watch that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. If you watched all of the
Mandalorian,
Clone Wars.
Oh, Clone Wars! I watched all of those.
It was an animated series of Clone Wars, and that's
some of the best Star Wars out there.
Really is.
Clone Wars.
It really is, and if you watch that first, and then watch it, and then watch Rebels. This has a big Rebels feel to it, because a lot of the characters are from the Rebels.
From Rebels, I've seen that too.
Yep, and it's good. I liked it.
I liked that a lot. I really liked The Mandalorian. I thought The Mandalorian was really cool.
I like The Mandalorian. I haven't watched. I think I watched the first 2 seasons. I haven't watched the 3rd season.
It's really good. One of my favorite parts of The Mandalorian is when they cast Timothy Oliphant as the sheriff of the town,
and that's a real Western feel for sure.
Because
that's the scene I was thinking of.
Feel.
That's the scene I was thinking of when you were saying that a while ago.
And Timothy Oliphant, for those of you who don't know, played a character named Raylan Givens on a show called Justified.
I love that show.
And he exactly played that exact same character in the Star Wars thing. And it was really cool on that. So I think you and I have both agreed that there's no one that we like better. It's just that we like them equally in different ways.
I always gravitated in Star Wars towards the second films. I don't know why. Like in the first,
like the even number films in
yes,
yeah,
2.
It's Star Wars or Star Trek?
No, Star Wars.
Star Wars.
So it'd be episode 2, and then episode 5.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And then episode 7. I don't know. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I always grabbed, like Empire Strikes Back was my favorite. The first 3 that we witnessed was just 5.
Yeah.
And then out of the prequels, Attack of the Clones. I mean, when they're in that big Coliseum deal and
that was cool. Yeah.
All the lightsabers start going off around. That was the first time you got to see a bunch of Jedis with their lightsabers.
Yeah,
out. It was really cool.
That they could actually record that, and I'm with you on the prequels. That had there not been a Jar Jar on there,
it would have been awesome.
I think it would have been awesome.
But in the same sense, after looking back, he played a major role.
He did play a major role,
but he was just annoying.
But they could have used another way. He was annoying as all get out.
He was so annoying.
And But
I loved Liam Neeson as
Liam Neeson as Qui-Gon
I can't never say his name.
Qui-Gon Jinn. Yeah.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Qui-Gon Jinn.
Yeah, he was Obi-Wan's.
Qui-Gon Jinn. That's the one you get if you can't get Tanqueray. I'm kidding. But yeah, but
if you can't get Tanqueray.
You knew we had to break it out again. You knew we had to, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh my!
I'm just going to say right now, Chris pushed that button.
No, I did not.
Oh,
liar, liar, pants on fire.
My pants are not smoking, sir. I don't have smoking britches.
No.
But yeah, so just go ahead and put you on the hook here, man. Favorite Star Trek
movie?
Yeah.
I tell you, man, I really liked The Voyage Home, which is number 4.
Yeah.
And I liked the one, the new one with Christopher Pine, the very first one.
That was really good.
That was.
I have to say.
That Romulan ship that's just it was awesome.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, the way they did it, they hit I guess it was a wormhole, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's a completely different
Well, they
timeline.
It's
a timeline.
It was divergent from the original, yes.
And they got all the characters, and like Spock actually meets Spock.
Yeah, which was cool.
An older Spock meets the younger Spock from a different timeline and talk. And that was one of Leonard Nimoy's last films.
Yeah, it was really
if not
good.
his last film.
No, he actually did make an appearance in the next one that one they did.
That's right.
With Bend Over Cucumber Patch.
What?
Benedict Cumberbatch. Benedictine Cumberbund, whatever his name is. He actually just made like a video appearance on there. Because he was, I think, very ill at that point. So they were able to like film.
Well, he played Khan, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, Doctor Strange played Khan. Yeah, so.
What?
Well,
you have lost me now.
Benedict Cucumber Patch also played Doctor Strange in the Marvel movies.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Well, he also played Sherlock Holmes.
Yes, he did.
That was a great
good
show.
Sherlock. Yes, it was.
I really like
which
that
you can
show.
watch sometimes on if you have the I don't know, the PBS app. Not that I would promote that for any particular reason.
Did they have that?
Yeah.
On the PBS, really?
Yeah.
Is it commercial free?
Yeah, if you pay for the passport and support our local PBS station, which you folks need to support your local PBS stations.
That's right.
for that kind. Not that I would have any interest in that at all. Oh man!
You gotta hold that one down.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Man.
But
so put you on the hook. Your favorites.
So my favorite out of the Star Treks, man, it's really hard to choose, but I have to say Wrath of Khan because it totally redeemed the entire series.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Ricardo Montalban
doing that little
pointing down
thing,
for them to shoot the Enterprise again.
Ricardo Montalban was so great.
He was good as Khan. He really was
in that role. And Wrath of Khan, to me, saved the franchise. It saved the franchise because I think the first movie, it wasn't a flop, but it wasn't anything that made people want to go see another one.
It made a lot of money.
It made a lot of money.
Because it was a Star Trek movie after, 12 years?
12 years of no Star Trek movie. Of no new Star Trek, except for the animated thing that came on Saturday mornings. But, but yes, Wrath of Khan saved it. It's a great movie.
You can't. Are you judging your favorite because it saved the franchise? Is that what you're doing? Because I'm thinking, come on, man, don't have no sentiment value. You don't care if the franchise dies. You want your favorite movie.
No, I really think it was a great
selfish.
movie. It was such. Listen, man, there were powerful moments. I didn't think we were ever going to see Leonard Nimoy again at the end of that one. Remember, because Spock dies. Spoiler. Yeah. Spock died at the end of Wrath of Khan, and that was like,
He saved the ship.
but he saved the ship. And listen, man, for a kid that grew up, loving these characters and the character Spock, when I saw him die, I'm sitting there and
he got a little verklempt.
And I got a little verklempt. I kind of had what I like to call the hootie puckers.
I'm pretty sure we saw this together in the theater.
Where you have the hootie puckers where you're like, where you're trying not to cry. And,
I would
it
put
was
$100 on it.
Yeah.
That we saw this together.
And it was probably. And it was, it was one of those moments. It's one of those great moments there. So, no, I love that film. To me, I can watch it today. I still love The Voyage Home, which is number 4 as well. That's probably the solid number 2.
So that came out in the mid-'80s, right? About
82 was Wrath of Khan. 86 was Voyage Home.
So they came back to 1986 in that movie.
Yeah.
To procure
2 humpback whales.
2 humpback whales.
Yeah.
And, dude, it is hysterical. Because they're walking around the streets.
Yes. Well, double dumbass to you. Which is hilarious. As a matter of fact, on one of the Picard episodes, this is one of the things, we talked about Star Trek Picard. They had a kind of a shout out to that because they went back to like whatever the year it is now is like 2021 or something like that they go back to.
Right.
And that same guy, the punk rocker that's on the bus that Spock, nerve pinches into, he's on there and he's listening to music. It's the same dude.
Really?
He's just like really old now. And he's like on there listening and say, "Can you turn that in?" He goes, "Yes, no problem at all."
We're totally glassing over. We're talking about the original Star Trek, but the Next Generation was really good.
Next Generation,
I fought it for a long time.
It was really good.
I was one of those guys. I like this. I ain't gonna like that.
Yeah.
But then I finally sit down and I went to school down in Texas for a couple of years, and one of my professors was a Trekkie. I mean, he was a big time Trekkie. He was my computer information systems. Professor, and
those
he
guys
had the entire set on VHS.
Yeah,
and he let me borrow them to watch while I was, and I watched the entire episode and really fell in love with the Next Generation.
Love it. Listen, because it didn't try to supplant the original. It was a building on it.
That's right.
This is where we are 80 years later.
So I think the Enterprise that we saw that Kirk was driving was the C. Is that right? NCC 1701 A. Mm-hmm. What was the one in?
It was
C?
D. It was C. It was C. It was C in Next Generation. Yeah. Later on, it was D in the movies, but it was the C class.
And that's one that was really cool. That was a new concept that could separate the motors from the saucer part. That was cool.
All right.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I enjoyed those. Now, favorite Star Wars?
For you. I've already said what mine were.
Which one? Star Wars?
Favorite Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Wars.
Star Wars. I told you it was Attack of the Clones.
You like Attack?
And Empire Strikes Back. Those are. I gravitate towards those middle films in the 3s because they bring them out in storylines in 3s.
Yeah. Empire Strikes Back to me is the best movie out of all of them.
I love it.
I
absolutely
I think that's a great one.
They introduced the snow speeders. That was really cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. I don't know, man, because that was the one where you found out that Darth Vader was Luke's dad.
Yeah,
that was the big twist. And, actually, I knew because I know this is a shock to some of you people. I was a little bit of a nerd. I ordered the novelization book and had it sent to the house before it was actually released on paperback.
You cheater.
And I read about and so I kept that secret when we all went to the movies.
You're awesome. You're awesome.
Because I didn't want to spoil that for you guys. But I knew because I think that movie was released in June of was it 80?
Was it June or sure it wasn't May because they usually release
May or June of 80. It was early on, but I knew in April, and I was like, I can't tell them, But yeah, that was great.
That was a great lightsaber battle between Luke and Darth Vader.
Yeah,
really cool. You meet Yoda for the first time.
Yeah.
and then, Yoda turns out to be a badass.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, Yoda turns out to be really, really bad.
Yeah.
But no. I mean, I love Star Wars.
Yeah,
to
me
me,
too.
but like I said, it's apples and oranges. So when we said Star Trek versus Star Wars, it's not really. I think they complement each other. I don't know.
I don't know that they complement each other, but they definitely have their own.
I think they do, because I don't think that without Star Wars, I'm sorry, Star Trek, I don't know that Star Wars would have caught on like it did. And you know what Star Wars kicked off? Battlestar Galactica. You remember we used to watch that. I'm going to throw that into.
I love Battlestar Galactica, man, and I'm going to tell you, the ships they had in there off the Galactica, the Vipers,
they were cool, weren't they?
That was a
They
really,
were
really cool ship.
But Star Wars begat Battlestar Galactica.
It did, and you're right, and I didn't miss an episode.
And I didn't miss an episode. So, so I think when it comes right down to it, that we just love them both, Chris.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, but okay. So if you're gonna pick one or the other, I hate to put you on Star Wars.
I mean, that's a no-brainer. It's Star Wars.
I gotta say Star Trek.
Well,
At the end of the day,
that's why.
Yeah,
That's
and
why
it's hard
we
to-
live in America, boy.
That's why we live in America. So we all have different views on that. But
You like
suck.
what you like,
Okay.
I like what I like, and we can get along.
Hey guys, this is the Retro Show. If you want to find out more about the show, go to retroshow.net. And of course, you can find all of our information right there. Facebook stuff, all of that good stuff that you can find there. Listen, I love all of you. I like a couple of you.
AMF, guys.
And we thank you for listening.